The man had made up his mind. The dog that had been bringing him income was getting too old, and weak puppies were appearing in every litter. He decided it would be best to keep a young female and get rid of the old one. The wolf hybrids were too loyal to tolerate competition, and the wife's objections didn't sway him. He was a confident and stubborn man, and no one could persuade him otherwise. Dakota regularly brought offspring and was Paul's first assistant on hunts, but for some reason, he had decided to get rid of her recently, once again. She had brought puppies. They were adorable. At some point, Dakota's mother had mated with a wolf, and since then, the wolf genes had always dominated the offspring. These puppies were very popular. People signed up in advance to buy a tiny bundle of joy with special abilities. They were easily trained and indispensable on hunts, tracking, and driving game. They were also fiercely loyal, and once they recognized their owner, they never betrayed or disappointed. Early in the morning, the owner called for his wolf dog. They usually went hunting with Paul at this time. Dakota tracked and flushed out the game, and it was now the hunter's turn with his accurate shot. However, this time, for some reason, Paul did not bring his gun. It was unclear why, but the dog had learned to trust her human unconditionally. Dakota ran alongside the man, trying to rub against his legs and show her love and loyalty. However, he did not respond to her affection today. The owner was particularly stern and silent. The dog sensed it and did her best to cheer up her Paul. She felt that he was anxious, and so the dog tried to help the man get out of this state. They walked in the forest for quite a while. From the side, it seemed that the man was still struggling with his own decision, and at times it seemed like he was ready to give up on it due to some foolish stubbornness that prevented him from doing so. Although maybe it was just an illusion. Dakota was surprised that her owner still hadn't given her the command to follow the trail. They had already gone deep enough into the forest, and there were plenty of smells of animals around them. She knew where each of them was hiding, and they could have caught some prey. However, instead of that, the man called the dog, attached a rope to her collar, and tied her to a tree, saying in a steel voice to sit and stay for a year. She obediently sat, not understanding what game they were playing, what she was supposed to do while tied up, and how she could help him into such a state. The dog was nervous and worried that she might need time to get close to him, and if he were in danger, time would be crucial. The one she was worried about turned and disappeared into the thicket of the taiga. Why did her owner leave her here alone? Why did he make her wait like this? These thoughts were buzzing in the dog's head like persistent flies, and she couldn't even imagine for a second that in such a barbaric way, the man whom she loved so much had decided to get rid of her. For several hours now, the poor thing had been sitting under the tree, waiting tirelessly in one position. Her muscles were quickly getting stiff, and every now and then she would get up to try to move them a little, but remembering her owner's command, she immediately returned to her place, since she was ordered to wait. Meanwhile, a strong rain began to pour down on Dakota's head, with large cold drops mixed with hail painfully striking her. Soon, they completely soaked through her thick fur. Winter had not yet given up its position and periodically returned after phantom warmth to remind everyone of its presence. The dog sat gloomily with her ears dripping water, waiting for the one who had abandoned her here like an unwanted thing. Some time passed, and she began to understand and, most importantly, accept this thought, and it was much more painful than being hit by ice-cold hail falling from a height in the middle of the night in the forest. It was cold, and the wet dog curled up in a ball, trying to warm up somehow. In the morning, the animal felt a sharp pain in its stomach. It had been a day since she had eaten or drunk anything, and her milk glands ached with the accumulated milk. The dog thought sadly of her puppies. They were probably big enough to eat on their own, but without their mother's milk, it would be unfamiliar for them. Shaking her head as if shaking off thoughts of her past life, Dakota knew she had to get used to it. She had no owner, no home, and nothing except herself and her new life. A life for which she would fight and struggle, no matter what. Apparently, her wolf blood was still alive in her. Dakota easily broke the rope that was holding her with a slight movement of her jaw and went to track down prey. She had done it before, but her loyalty to humans had not allowed her to disobey her owner's command from childhood to hunt and smell fresh meat. And now she had to learn how to hunt on her own to avoid starving. Fortunately, Dakota was able to catch a field mouse and a small rabbit almost immediately, which helped to quell her hunger. Now, the wolfskin explored the new territory where she would have to live. She had no intention of trying to return to humans, who had betrayed her and lost her trust forever. Dakota wandered from place to place, sniffing out the forested areas and trying to understand who the unofficial owner was, so as not to inadvertently challenge the long-established order here. As a newcomer to this area, she should not get into trouble. Primitive instincts that lay dormant deep inside her quickly awakened. Intoxicating feelings of freedom combined with the understanding that danger could lurk anywhere in nature. Suddenly, her sensitive nose caught a worrying scent. Dakota tensed up. It couldn't be a mistake. Somewhere nearby, there were wolves. The hair on the animal's withers stood on end, ready to meet a formidable opponent. Dakota had encountered these gray predators in the forest before, one of whom had become her father, but related wolves did not accept her. They immediately made it clear that they would tear her to shreds if she tried to approach them. The wolfskin prepared herself for the fact that she might have to fight for the right to live. All of this was mixed with strange sounds that didn't quite match the smell of wolves and stirred the imagination. Drawing different scenarios, she cautiously moved forward, but then the amazed dog's gaze saw a completely different picture. In the wolf's den, the dog discovered the lifeless body of a she-wolf and 3 newborn wolf cubs that whined pitifully, poking their blind little faces into their mother's cold body. Dakota immediately remembered her own puppies left with their owner. Her heart tightened with sadness and injustice. Without hesitation, she rushed to the newborn puppies, starting to sniff and lick them. The helpless and weak puppies, finding the opportunity to feed on milk, immediately got to work, thinking it was their mother's time. Dakota found a new den for her pups so she wouldn't have to share it with the deceased alpha female. As her foster pups grew quickly, they required constant supervision and feeding, which took up all of Dakota's free time. She now thought less and less about her past life, and her wolf essence, inherited from her father, was increasingly manifesting itself. Only occasionally in her dreams did she remember forgotten images from her past, where she saw her owner and, forgetting her resentment, ran to him with all her paws. This caused Dakota to whine in her sleep and twitch her paws, but upon awakening from these visions, she found herself surrounded by 3 grown pups. Today, Dakota had been walking through the taiga for several hours in search of food. Her own small but friendly pack demanded more and more food every day, so she had to expand her hunting range. She crossed an invisible boundary and entered foreign territory. She was well aware of this, but had no other choice. She either had to starve or fight for the right to hunt in these areas. The owner of the territory soon appeared before her. Very soon, a large gray wolf blocked her path, baring his teeth and showing the unwelcome guest that it would be better for her to leave. He had not guessed who she was. Dakota was no longer the yard dog she once was, but a fierce forest predator, hunting for her children's sustenance and ready to fight anyone for them. Instantly, the fur on the nape of the wolf owl's neck stood on end. Dozens of past battles flashed through the animal's memory, giving her not only the victory, but also the confidence in her own abilities. However, something went wrong this time. Her opponent had thrown down a challenge, and just then, 2 more wolves from his pack appeared. The advantage was clearly on the side of the owners of this forest, and they were not going to overlook it. In a matter of seconds, the wolf pack attacked the lone wolf shepherd, threatening to tear him apart. Despite her desperate struggle, Dakota had no chance of coming out victorious. She grabbed the gray leader by the throat and knocked him to the ground, trying to tear his throat apart. However, at the same time, other jaws rushed from above, grabbing her by the nape and trying to tear her apart. The wolf shepherd felt how quickly her strength was leaving her wounded body. At that moment, it seemed that she already understood that her life would end now, in the jaws of the wolf pack. But then, her adoptive mother from the forest, Troy, came to her rescue. The grown-up wolves were still children to her, but in reality, they had grown into strong predators. The young wolves immediately pounced on the attackers, knocking them off their feet. The rival pack's leader managed to break free from the grip of the wolf shepherd and left bright droplets of blood on the grass as he ran away, followed closely by his pack. The gray, wounded pack, pursued relentlessly by Dakota and her wolf cubs, disappeared into the distance. The forest was now theirs, and they would hunt and breed there. Dakota licked her wounds, still trembling from the battle. Despite the pain, her heart was full of joy. She felt grateful for the fierce defenders who had risked their lives to protect her. If humans were unable to understand and appreciate such a gift, then the wolves had accepted and repaid her with their gratitude.